Welcome to Zero to Zero, the definitive podcast about running for people that don't know what the word definitive means. In this episode, we give an update on the first part of our marathon training. We talk about how we find that sweet spot in our pace during our training. We talk about what's going well and some things that are not going so well. And make sure you stay tuned to the end because it may or may not, but definitely does, end with a poem about Dan. This is Zero to Zero. All right, men. So we are in our marathon training. The last time we did an episode, we hadn't yet started it. We are now 4 weeks done into week 5. Should we give everybody a small update on what we're actually doing here?
Yeah, we can give a small breakdown, just that it's pretty much each week consists of 5 runs, 3 recovery runs, which so far have been anywhere from, I think, 15 to 40 minutes. 1 long run, which we've typically done on Saturday, anywhere from, I think the shortest one was 5 miles, and then we've gone up to 7.
Mm-hmm.
And then a speed run. I believe we've done a fartlek, an interval, or a couple intervals, and
Hills.
a hill workout.
This 4th week also was the first time that we took a step back in weekly training mileage and long run. The other ones had been progressively getting longer up to this point.
Yeah, it was a little step back.
Yeah. So for Daniel and I, this has been an increase in weekly run numbers for the last, Dan, 2 months? For me, the last 2 months
2
for
months,
sure, because
yeah.
I've been doing 2 to 3 runs a week. For Brett,
Uh,
Brett's still getting all sorts of miles beyond the plan.
he's doing all those extra runs. Mine's been a little bit of a step back from my mileage the last couple weeks before I planned, but the month and a half before that, yeah, kind of stepping up. But I think there was a couple weeks where I had a little bit more right before the plan.
Brett, how many miles are you going to end up with this month?
Right now, I'm at 100, pretty much even. So I'll get another run in. So probably like 103 or 104, kind of depending how much I want to run tomorrow. But I've been doing some extra runs in the Nike Run Club app, because if you do 8 of Coach Bennett's runs by the 31st, you get 20% off of, I think, 150 on Nike.com. So not sure if I'm going to get anything yet, but I'm 1 run away from getting the 50 or getting the 8 runs. I'll at least have that. So that kind of made it easier.
It's pretty sweet.
Nice.
But this month made 5 months in a row of getting 100 miles.
That's awesome, man. Another celebration for Brett. He just passed 1,000 miles on the Nike Run Club all time.
With that, I just started at the end of last February, so could
Less
be
than a year.
within, yeah, it could be within a calendar year. I have 1,100 miles. But
That's
February,
awesome.
I guess February this year being a leap year, we get 29 days instead of 28. So you get an extra day to fit in,
Probably get 2,000 miles then this year.
probably.
Let's go on to, we've given kind of a general update. Let's go on to our first point that we want to talk about today. How are you guys choosing your paces? Dan, you start us off. For the easy runs and for the speed runs, what are you utilizing to pick how hard you're going?
So I kind of just went off of, I didn't really look too hard or stick too hard to what the chart on the Nike plan was. I kind of just went off of I go off like a minute range. So like whatever my best 5K and 10K and paces were, I go like for, I think 5K I try to hit anywhere from 7 to 8 minute pace. For 10K I try to keep it between like 8 and 9, somewhere in there. And then for mile pace I try to keep it between like 6 to 6.5, or 6 to 7. So it's kind of like a pace that I haven't hit yet on an actual mile or on an actual 5K, but then upwards of not going over what my best is, and kind of just trying to progressively get stronger and get faster with that and hit the lower end of that, I guess. But and then as far as like recovery pace, I've been hitting just keeping my heart rate down, not really paying attention to the time, and getting too kind of married to the pace chart, because I think that's what I did in the last one. Was I was set on, even when the recovery runs, I was set on hitting that recovery pace that it called out on there, and I think I probably ran too hard on a lot of my recovery runs. So I've been trying to make sure and keep my heart rate down and run an easier pace to get the actual recovery run as it's intended to be, which has helped me a lot. I could tell a huge difference whenever I do get to my speed runs by sticking to that, heart rate rather than pace on the recovery runs. What about you, Brett?
For speed days, I've been somewhat using kind of what my 5K and 10K paces are. I kind of figured like I could push it a little faster, but since this is for a marathon, I would rather be consistent with those than to come out and push harder than I need to and then have to back off. So I've been pretty much using 5K of a 10-minute pace, or 5K 9:30 pace, 10K 10-minute pace, and then mile 8:30 half marathon, which we haven't had any intervals at that pace yet, but that'd be more of a 10:45. And then whenever we have to do a tempo pace, I'll probably do about 10:30 on that. So it kind of gives me a good range there, which I think this week's speed run has a 10-minute interval of our tempo pace in the middle of it. I was looking. So kind of get to put different paces to the test there. Like Dan was saying, for recovery runs, I'm basing off heart rate. Some days it's 12:30, some days it's 14 minutes. It's whatever it is. It's not super important. And I think part of what helps with that is just not caring how long it takes me to do it. Okay, I have an hour and a half realistically to do this, and he knows I plan on only running for an hour. But if it takes me longer, it takes me longer. If it takes me shorter, that's fine too. And then for the longer runs, with just how the weather's been, I haven't really had any well planned out paces. I was thinking if this Saturday is going to be nice, that I would try to hit like 10:30 pace overall. I'm kind of stuck between wanting to practice at the marathon pace that we plan on running, which I think would be about 11:25 is what we'd like to hit overall, because I think that gets us under 5. It's somewhere around there, but I still want to be able to push for those not as long distances and kind of practice at running a faster pace, and then compared to my body just being used to running at that pace all the time. Maybe I'll mix it up, do a little bit of both. How about you, Joe?
I've done a lot of the speed runs inside because of the weather. So the treadmill's settings have dictated some of mine, like the quote unquote best pace that I've had to do in a couple of the speed runs. I have to max out the treadmill, which is only a 10. So according to that, it would be a 6-minute mile. But those intervals are like 15 to 30 seconds. They're not what I would be able to run a mile in. That's that best pace where you might die, but you'll do it real fast, so it won't hurt super long. And then I kind of work down from there. So I've been using my mile pace as the 9, which again, according to that, would be a 7-minute mile, which would hit my pace chart if that's accurate. And then my 5K, the step below that, and the 10K, the step below that, which is probably too slow for the 10K one, but I haven't been crazy worried about it because it's been treadmill work and we've only had 4 workouts. Easy runs, I have been doing heart rate just like you guys have, just trying to keep it in that zone 2 stuff. And then on my long runs, I've been less worried about that, but the treadmill ones have kind of worked out that way anyway, that it's been all heart rate based. The one we did the other day, I wasn't super worried about it. I was keeping an eye on it, but I didn't care about it. It was just having fun being outside with you guys finally, getting to actually do a run together. I think as I go forward, I'm going to really try to get aggressive with my speed workout tempos and paces, and maybe long runs, depending on when we do. Like you said, Brett, it would be nice to do something more aggressive than zone 2 on some of those and kind of prepare that way for the marathon. But on runs that we're together, I don't really care what it is. I'm just having a good time hanging out. The difference between finishing a marathon in 4:30 versus 4:52 is kind of irrelevant. I'm just happy that we've got a reasonable goal of finishing this first one. We'll start knocking at the door of 3:30 on our next marathon, maybe.
I thought you were going 2:45 on your second.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. It depends on how much of my e-bike I'm allowed to use on it.
It also depends on that American Cookie sponsorship.
Yeah, we're available for sponsorships. I think the reason that we haven't been offered any is because people don't know that we're willing to take them. But guys, it's okay to ask. You don't know until you ask. So go ahead and ask us. We will take literally anything that you want to give us. We'll get you an episode sponsored right now. A 3% off coupon to any fast food restaurant would get you an episode sponsorship for the next episode for recording number 6. So just keep it in mind. Other things that we are going to talk about today, what's going well and or what do we like so far about the NRC marathon plan or what we're doing to this point. Brett, you want to start us off, buddy?
Some of it is like a reset. I wish the speed workouts were longer. I think that would be nicer, like longer times that you're hitting paces. And they don't necessarily have to be at those high paces, but some of them it's like we're preparing to run for several hours here, and our speed workout's 20 minutes long. It's kind of like, okay. And 6 minutes of that is the 5-minute warm-up run and then a minute of break for you to pause and stretch and stuff. So it's like, I just don't think we're getting quite as much as we could. So I usually add on a little bit after. Most of it's pretty good. We've liked it for the 5K, the 10K, and the half marathon plan. So I think it's still working good. It definitely gives you nice structure to base your plan off of, and it does a great job of recording your workouts, and so you can compare them and do different things with that. So it's definitely a net positive. There's just little things that I would prefer to be different.
What about you, Dan? What's going well, or what do you like so far?
I like the extra recovery run, mainly because it's giving me more time to work on getting better at them. Like my watch, I can set a goal and a timer, and it kind of just I ignore the pace completely. It just has my heart rate only. Tells me whether I'm in range or out of range. So getting better at that. I agree with what Brett said though. The speed workouts, especially these first 4 weeks. I think this week it's supposed to be longer. I think they might start getting a little bit longer, but the length of the speed runs were a little short. But I've been kind of using that as an opportunity to try to do some lifting here and there when I can. I haven't been able to as much. Do some strength training. Had a few workouts at the Recplex. Brett had a couple with me with when we did the treadmill runs, those brutal treadmill runs. I'd say the extra recovery run just because it gives me the opportunity to work on that more and get better at it.
Yeah, mine's a little simpler. The thing that I like about it is just having a plan that I don't have to organize and prepare myself, and a checklist that I can literally go off every single week. When you click on the plan part of the app, it literally gives you the 5 runs you're doing, and as you click start, it will check them off when you're finished. So that, from an organizational standpoint, is really good for me. I have yet to adjust or miss a run where in 4 weeks, whereas when we were doing it on our own and we were self-guided, I was moving my days around all over the place. I would skip a run at least once a week. I was just less disciplined about it. Whereas when that thing is staring you in the face and you know that at the end of this thing, we've already signed up and paid for a marathon, it's, for me, a big help organizationally and from a motivation standpoint. It's harder to skip things now knowing that the end is nigh.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I just like seeing that progression too, you know?
Well, and two, one thing I think of is if you do miss a day, or if I'm thinking about like skipping Monday because you get too busy, you just feel like you don't have time. You kind of think forward to the day. Well, how am I going to fit the rest of the runs in this week?
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to run 5 days in a row, so it kind of I like that too. That's a good point. Staring you in the face.
Let's talk about what's not going so well, or what's one thing that we haven't enjoyed about the marathon plan to this point. It can be an experience or something within the app itself.
We can start with me and Dan's because it's the same thing. Dan and I did the 7-mile run. So that was week and a half ago or so now. So not this past Saturday, but the Saturday before, which probably won't make too much sense timeline wise, but based off when this comes out. We went to the Recplex and we did the 7-mile run together. We were on the treadmill and we were just going to increase our pace every mile and work our way up. And treadmill runs are especially hard because you have to think about how you're running the whole time. There is no mental break of just kind of going in autopilot. You have to think about what you're doing because otherwise you could fall off the treadmill. And
Yeah.
when it's in a place with other people, not only could you get hurt, but it could be embarrassing.
Yeah.
And so we're running and we're coming up on the 3rd mile and I'm like, I cannot accelerate anymore. Like I don't want to. I don't want to do it for another 4 miles or whatever. So I go to Dan, I look at Dan and I'm like, "Hey, you want to take like a break so we can actually drink instead of trying to drink while we're running on a treadmill and struggling to do that. Let's walk a 10th of a mile. That way we can get a drink and kind of reset." And so Dan, no hesitation, agrees. So we do that, and we start back up. I think we did increase our speed still when we started back up, and not too far into that 4th mile, I look back at Dan. I was like, "Hey, you want to do the walk again at 4?" Dan, no hesitation again, says yes. And then we're getting, I think, then I think we stayed at the same pace or maybe slowed down one for going into the 5th mile. And then I was like, "Hey, at the 6th mile, let's drop it back down to 3 miles per hour. So that's 20-minute pace, which is a walk. And let's just every 10th of a mile increase it
Increase.
by 1." So that's what we
exactly
do.
what we did.
So that's
It
what we
was
do for the
brutal.
6th mile. And then we kind of reversed that for the 7th mile. We jumped up to 5 and worked our way back down to 4 to finish. It was literally just anything we could do to make the run mentally get over because it was just a miserable time. Like it wasn't like, oh,
Well,
my legs hurting or something. It was all upstairs. It was all mental. And
so
then
I
we did learn a little from that previous time. We slowed down to a crawl at the end. That way it wasn't too weird getting off of the treadmill and it feels like you're moving 1,000 miles an hour. But I'll let you tell your part of it, Dan.
one thing I want to point out with that run, if you remember, so we get on the treadmill and it's got a screen and it's like, hey, pick your like a destination run. Like
Nice.
you could pick like a mountain or like, and it's a video of like you're walking through the mountains. And I'm like, well, we definitely don't want to do the mountains because I'm assuming this thing's going to account for elevation and it's going to put it on an incline. So we
Right.
picked the beach scene, which is like, the same thing. And so of course it's walking through like the town, like I don't remember what country it was in, but wasn't ready for it because you're on a treadmill, so you're just expecting to go. And I catch myself starting to drift back, and I realize I'm on an incline of 2 now. Like it just kept doing it. So then that kind of messed with us because every time you turn around, it was just automatically going on an incline, and you weren't ready for it. Like running outside, you go up a hill, you see the hill, you're ready for it. And so then we were constantly messing with the buttons, adjusting the incline every time it would automatically increase it on us. So I think that kind of also played a part in mentally just watching the numbers. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of treadmill runs,
Well, not only that
especially
is like
long ones.
we thought it was going to be like relatively flat. So it only has you go up in elevation and returns to flat. So when you run outside,
Yeah, it's true.
after you run the hill, usually you get to run downhill after. So you get the relief of that. The treadmills, it's like, congratulations, you get to run on flat ground now. It's like, whoa, what are we doing here? Every time it increased, we're hitting it down. And each of like the scenic views that the treadmill had for us was only like 20 minutes long. And we're doing a 7 mile run at a snail's pace pretty much. And
So it automatically took us into another one.
it took us into another one. So we're running in Paris, and it's like, I would never run upstairs.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It gets
It
to
has
stairs and it's
you
like
going upstairs and different things. We gotta see the Louvre, so that was a bucket list thing.
oh, I love it.
I haven't had
Throw
any,
some of your
any
turf.
experiences quite that bad. I mean, the long treadmill runs are long, but the big thing that I've had a hard time with this marathon plan so far, and no fault of Nike's, I think I'm going to hold Coach Bennett personally responsible for this. My diet has been absolute garbage. I have eaten so many things in between, the holiday season and now, because it's like birthday month and year for our family. In like November, December, and January, there's like a birthday every 3 days. And then there's another celebration every 15 minutes, it seems like. So I'm trying to cut down right now to one cake a week. I went 3 weeks in a row, and this sounds like a ridiculous exaggeration, where I had 2 cakes a week. My wife makes the best Texas sheet cake, which is this chocolate, pan sheet cake that is just phenomenal. And these kids running around this house are no help at all. I have to eat this thing on my own, and I love her so much that I'm not going to waste it. Like, how disrespectful and rude that would be to not eat the entire 17,000 calorie cake in 4 days. So I do that, and then I get cookie cakes galore. I had some dear friends get me one just the other day. I ate one totally on my own, unprovoked, unrelated to a celebration. I went to Schnucks one night and got a cookie cake because that's the kind of discretion that I'm using with my diet in this moment. And so I am living the reality of you can't outrun a bad diet. So that's what I've got to get under control. I think I had it pared down pretty well yesterday until my third dinner around 9 p.m. And I'm going to hold Baldur's Gate responsible for that, because I was like, well, I can't, search for this tiefling without eating a bowl of cereal. And I find the tiefling, and then I can't, cast a great cantrip without an entire $5 Reese's Heart, the kind that's, 2,000 calories if you eat it all in one sitting. So I don't see that one's my fault either. I think between Coach Bennett, I don't know why I'm holding him responsible for the cakes, but I think between those two things, let's blame the lunch run. Between those two things, my diet is out of control. So I've got to do better. But again, no fault of anyone but my own. That's something that I can adjust. Maybe I just need to get to the 20-mile run so that I can offset some of it. Like, if you go outside and look in your trash can right now, that's what I'm eating.
Garbage.
Whatever it is. Whatever is in your trash right now, I'm eating it.
One of the things I forgot about the treadmill run that we did, we have 6 different things measuring our distance. We each have a watch.
Oh,
that's right.
We have the
so
treadmill.
funny.
And we're like looking at each other, and it's like, because we're hitting the same paces as each other and stuff. We look at each other, it's like, whatever says 7 miles first is the correct one.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, we each had a watch. We each had the treadmill, and we each had our phone. And all 6 of them said something different.
My phone was over a half mile behind the treadmill, and I'm like, I am not running an extra 3/4 of a mile just for this thing to say 7 miles when the treadmill has said it's gone 7 miles of going around the track there. That was one of the things I thought of too. There were so many things. Like, I was just getting mentally, like, just taken advantage of by that run.
Oh man, good stuff.
Forgot about that part.
What do we have left? We're on week 5, so that means we have 14 weeks to go.
Yes, sir. Well,
Yep.
All right, man.
Counting this week. Counting this week.
Well, it's coming. So far, we're doing pretty well. A little update on us. By the time this actually gets published, the plan is that we've started running the Katy Trail from the furthest away, closer to St. Charles, where we live, the St. Charles County area, where the Katy Trail in Missouri ends. So it's the longest and most narrow state park. So that's pretty exciting. We're going to try to run that whole thing segment at a time. So hopefully that thing gets knocked out. The plan is, and again, tentative, is to run it on the 10th of February. And then 2 weeks after that, another tentative plan for us is to run one in the Smoky Mountains. So if you guys aren't paying attention to the shorts. Our short videos on YouTube are given run updates. So if you want to follow a little bit more in detail than the, periodical version that we're doing here on the long form podcast, those are certainly available if you would like to giggle at us in 45-second intervals. Anything else, guys? Anything I'm missing? Anything we need to mention? Do you want me to read the ChatGPT poem about Dan to close?
Oh goodness! You put a ChatGPT poem together? Are you kidding me?
I did. I thought that might be
ChatGPT asked him if they wanted to see it. It was unprovoked. That's just AI. It's learning. It's like, hey,
I knew you know Dan. Would you like a poem about him? So here's the prompt that I put into ChatGPT, and I don't know if I guess you guys didn't see it, huh? Oh, I only gave you a snippet. I said a rhyming poem about a beautiful man named Dan that is obnoxiously humble. All right, here's what it said. This is my first time reading through it, so be patient with me. In a town where grace and charm align, there lived a man named Dan so fine. His visage, a portrait of beauty's plan, yet obnoxiously humble was this man. With eyes that sparkled like the night, Dan moved with grace, pure delight. His laughter echoed a melodious tune, a symphony that danced beneath the moon. But oh, his humility, a dazzling feat, a trait that made his charm complete. He'd downplay compliments, deflect the praise, as if beauty were merely a passing phase. His kindness radiated like the sun, a warmth that touched everyone. Yet Dan remained blissfully unaware of the awe he inspired everywhere. He'd blush at admiration, modest and shy, an obnoxious humility none could deny. A canvas of modesty painted with grace, in a world enamored by his gentle embrace. In every gesture, a selfless art, a reflection of a humble heart. Oh, Dan, with your humble air, you're a masterpiece beyond compare. So let the world applaud and cheer for the beautiful man named Dan, my dear. In the symphony of humility, he stands tall, a paradox of beauty, humble above all. I mean, if that's not quality literature, then I don't understand poetry.
You have way too much fun with that ChatGPT.
Dude, it's fantastic. Dan, it nailed you. It knows more about you than most people.
You're such a dork.
All right, guys. Nice job. We have just another couple of minutes left. We nailed it.
Yes, sir.